Hi, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Mark Graban. Our guest today is Bill Canady. He is a global business executive with over 30 years of experience leading industrial and consumer product companies. He is currently CEO of Arrowhead Engineered Products, and he is the chairman of OTC Industrial Technologies, a private equity sponsored firm. So he oversees 30 operating companies, more than 2,000 employees, and $1 billion in annual sales. Until recently, he was CEO of OTC Industrial Technologies. And under his leadership there, OTC has achieved remarkable growth, revenues up 43% and earnings up 78%. Throughout Bill's career, he's navigated complex business environments. He's honed a passion for the art and science of growth. He's developed what he calls the PGOS, Profitable Growth Operating System. It's a proven framework that helps businesses drive productivity, profitability, and smarter decision making. So before I tell you a little bit more about Bill, welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
Yeah, it's great to be here, Mark. Thank you so much for having me. And you're quite the hype man, so I have to get you doing my bio all the time.
Thank you for sitting through that. And sometimes people don't like to hear their bio read in front of them. Not the best use of your time, but correct me if I'm wrong on anything that was in the details there.
No, you got it all perfect.
All right. Bill and I have had a couple of great opportunities to chat over the past months. Bill, I learned about Bill. We got connected. He's the author first of a book called The 80/20 CEO, Take Command of Your Business in 100 Days. And then I had an opportunity to read an advanced copy of his next book. It's going to be released April 29th. That book is titled From Panic to Profit, Uncover Value, Boost Revenue, and Grow Your Business with the 80/20 Principle. So final details, Bill is a U.S. Navy veteran. He holds a summa cum laude degree from Elmhurst University and an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business. And then also coming up in April, Bill is going to be joining me as part of the KaiNexus Continuous Improvement webinar series. He is going to be our second guest in an occasional series called Ask the CEO. So if there are questions that I don't ask Bill today, you can submit questions and hopefully join us on the 23rd. There'll be a link to that in the show notes. So, Bill, it's a great opportunity to hear from your experiences, as a CEO, a P&L leader in different businesses, and a lot of questions to ask about that. But first, as I tend to ask everybody, or at least in recent years here on the podcast, how would you describe, as your career evolved, your origin story with continuous improvement or operational excellence or lean, or however different companies might have framed that?
First of all, it's great to be here. Exciting to see you. I always enjoy our conversations. And when I look back over my career, you start out and you're just kind of happy to be in the game, and then as it progress and you go through it, you actually got to get good at something, and a lot of things are so much out of our control. Things like how the market's doing, if our customers are going to stay with us or not. I mean, we can do the best we can, but we can really control our own destiny by using tools like continuous improvement and lean and other ones. It's something that you can go out and every day, and I always make the example, you can turn that light on or off. You can have that inventory there or not. So it's one of the few things, and it's a proven way of making your business better and treating your customers the way they want to be, is having great continuous improvement.
And do you recall, which company you were at and some of the context for learning this? Was it a consultant that was brought in? Was it somebody that you were reporting to? Was it somebody on your team who said, "Hey, this is something we should be doing"?
Yeah, it was kind of done to me, I think, is probably the best way to think about it. So I was early in my career. I just got out of the University of Chicago, and my first big job I got was with a company called Inventus. And Inventus, at the time, it was Six Sigma. So we had a big automotive business amongst other things. And it was really all about documentation and things like that. So we came in and we got our green belts. We did the things that we had to do. But rapidly, as my career progressed, it went from really Six Sigma to lean. It went to really waste reduction instead of variation control, and which is where I spent most of my time. I guess I'll always be a green belt. I'm for sure not a practicing one in Six Sigma anymore. But with lean, I would tell you a lot of the success I have today, you can tie right back to that training I got. We through various companies. We had outside folks come in, like a lot of people. We were trained by people like Next Level Partners, and some great ones out there. And there's been tons of them, but that was one of the first ones that I really remember getting kind of a strong foundation in going through that process. And it was a corporate wide program, so I was in it, and I was really happy to be part of it.
Yeah. As your career moved along, I think something a lot of people listening are in, different engineering roles, process improvement roles, operations management roles, and where I'd love to hear how your career kind of shifted into P&L responsibility. To hear some of that story and what advice you would have for others that want to kind of make that leap into having that broader responsibility for a business unit.
It's really interesting. I started out as a commercial person. I was out selling something. My first job was push. I always called it pushing a windshield down the road. I was driving a car out, seeing people, and a lot of times, folks like me, you don't think about lean at all. And most of the people, they think of it as something that happens out on the factory floor. Mm-hmm. And we always had this saying, I don't know if it's still even true, but it was carpet and concrete. So you were inside the office, you had carpet. Right. You didn't do anything with lean. And out on the floor, I mean, we were on lean like you just couldn't believe. And so when I first came in from, if you will, from out of the cold into the office, I was running operations. Was how I got my first, and so I got exposed to it. I was right out on the factory floor, trying to get the machines working, trying to get the bottlenecks out of it, and we were using everything from SMED to you name it, right? And but the interesting thing was, as I got ground into it, and I got promoted again, and I started having both kind of general management responsibility, where the real opportunity was actually on the carpet. It was in the office, right?
I've heard some people call that carpet land.
Yeah. It was those people over there. They thought, but just because they were in air conditioning, it was the most chaotic piece. So we started doing things like value stream mapping, where we're looking from order to cash, and we would see the order being taken. It would fall apart, get out on the floor. A lot of people looked at it there and got flow through the factory, and then coming back in, collecting the money. Again, it was just a spaghetti bowl of what was going on. So the real breakthrough for me was probably in kind of the late 90s. We didn't take our eye off the ball of the operational side out on the concrete. We started adding Kaizens into the office. We started laying out how we did it, and we really started looking, how do we take those orders? What kind of filter did we put on the front end of the business so we didn't take things we couldn't make? That was really where we started seeing big changes in our businesses.
Yeah. That's almost the exact same time frame. You're just giving me a bit of a flashback to Dell Computer 1999. They were good operationally. It wasn't strictly a lean Toyota model, but one thing they were very, very good at with that direct sales model was shaping demand. To line up with supply, of not selling too much of what they didn't have, or offering discounts to to help move what was in stock. I think it's interesting to look at this from a broader business system level. And I mean, at that time, a lot of companies were studying Dell. I don't know if that was anything you and your colleagues were paying attention to at the time.
Not so much Dell at the time, but many of the same pieces. It was funny. Whatever you're in charge of, you want to do the best you can, and when you get a little broader perspective, all of a sudden you realize, these are the tools I have. I can approach my process in my office is the same way I can on the factory floor. And how you look at it, the kaizens are the same, the approach is the same, the amount of days, how you report it out, everything is the same. And all of a sudden, we all start talking a common language. We all start to become aligned around really putting the customer at the center of what we do. What do they need? Work our way backwards from that. Without it, it just becomes bottleneck after bottleneck. We maybe we get, maybe we get that throughput. We can take off 5 more seconds. We could take 2 weeks out of just one process in the office. I mean, it was that part would drop off the end of the machine. We want it to drop complete, go right into the box. But that order may sit on the engineering desk for 2 or 3 weeks while someone had to look at it. Somebody was on vacation. So saving seconds was hard on the floor at some point. Saving days in the office was way easier. So it was kind of fun to do, actually.
Yeah. And so then, as you got exposed to lean, both for, operations and business functions, what was the transition like going from, a business unit P&L role within a company to being a CEO when it came to your view of not just lean, but as your role as a leader of it?
It's interesting. Like I said before, whatever you're responsible for, you have a bit of a myopic view, and there's those people and there's us, and the higher you go, the more you realize that we're all in it together. And if you can I've often said, if you don't care who gets credit for it, you can get anything accomplished, right? It doesn't matter where it's going. And when you realize it's all kind of the same entity, the same pocket, and we can all get credit for it, it gets really interesting. And so when I think about, for me, there was a few seminal events that happened. So the first was, my way back in to get leadership was to go in and do operations, because I had the commercial side. And then when I got put back over the commercial side again, I thought, oh my God, I got this set of tools I could really, really do something with. The next big thing that really changed it for me was daily management. Was every day, everyone getting in front of that board and having not just the operational people, but talking about, safety, quality, delivery, cost, all the core things that kept that business going, and having someone up there in front of it. Once I had that tool set, and I will tell you, I was for sure not an expert at any of it. Right. But once I understood it and understood the power of it, it became the same tool set that I took wherever I went. So I would go into, and I'd come in. If you look at it today, I come in and I take over a business, and I start thinking, okay, here's what we're going to do. Right. And what we do isn't so much about what I think we should be doing or not. It's what the business needs. So we have a process of looking at. As soon as we make the first move, it creates a bit of chaos, a bit of opportunity. Lean is what allows the machine to keep working, right? So you look at it and you go, hey, I got 4 factories, I need 3. Or maybe I got 3 factories, I need 4. It's whatever it is. That's going to necessitate all sorts of changes. We go in, we break it, you have to, but you don't have to put it back the way it was. You can actually put it back better. And so having this ability to look across the company and say, well, where are all my lean resources? How do I get them there? What are those tools, these daily stand-up meetings with it? The stuff is kind of like, they tell us the things you learned in kindergarten. If you get those right, you'll do it. It's the same way in lean. The things that you learn your very first day, someone teaches you lean, is the same things you will be doing when you're a CEO. It's exactly the same. It doesn't change, right? It's all about, how do I get flow? How do I think about it? Now, one day maybe it's me moving the machine. The next day maybe it's someone else, but I still need that flow.
Yeah. So those mindsets that continue, you say you're focusing on the same things. How does problem solving kind of enter into the daily role of a CEO from early training? I'm sure you received on, as part of lean principles of, being the problem solver versus encouraging others to be better problem solvers. I'm curious how you navigate or apply some of that.
So I'm going to make the assumption that not everyone's gone through it on, maybe your audience, I'm sure, is all experts, but you've got everything from the basic tools like a fishbone diagram, and you're going to go through the 5 whys, right? So you start out and you learn these tools and you learn how they're applied. And candidly, it's pretty much common sense. There's no magic. It's not like you have to learn a new language. If you learn a couple of Japanese words, and they're kind of fun to say anyway, right? The 5 forms of waste and muda, and you got on and on and on with these things. So you learn all that. And so as you start out and you're in there doing it, as you go up, the thing that you really got to do is, first of all, you need to respect the process. You need to make it a condition of employment. We are going to do lean. We are going to get waste. And as the leader, if you don't make it as a condition of employment, people won't do it. But most importantly, you have to be engaged in it yourself. So when we, in all my companies, the way we do it, we don't take the resources of lean and set those aside somewhere in some ivory tower. They're actually in the businesses every day. Now, there may be a central person or a small group that runs it, but the actual people doing it are in the business. We don't want a big corporate overhead. And then because generally we have multiple companies, when we're going to run an event, we'll put it on a calendar and we say, okay, so we're going to be in San Diego at Factory A, and we'll take everybody who's available across those and send them all to that factory. We want everyone to speak the same language, do it the same way, because the tools are the tools. It's like being a carpenter. A hammer's a hammer, a saw's a saw. It's the same thing in lean, right? Getting the daily management boards for you. And the one thing I have learned is lots of companies have different things. Some call it a glass wall. Some call it a sight board. Some call it a MDI board. I've learned not to fight any of that. I embrace whatever the language is. I just need to make sure we're all using the same language. So we all go to San Diego. We go through that. And some places are called those green days and white days, right? They'll come out and see what's going to happen, and then they come out and they actually do it. So we embrace the culture as it stands. We embrace a continuous improvement culture. And then we get everyone together, and it becomes fun, right? People love to win. And the tool set is something that we can get across the organization by getting them together on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with you. People love to win. They want to win. They want to play for a winning coach, if you will. But, change is hard for people sometimes. So I'd be curious to dig a little more into when you talk about, lean as a condition for employment, continued employment. What happens when you run across people that really just love their old habits of firefighting after the fact and being the hero instead of putting systems in place to prevent the fire, or people who are just so used to saying, well, I'm going to build up inventory. Inventory is the solution to all of my problems. Trying to bring those people around, or realizing, oh, you're just not a fit anymore. How do you navigate that, or the leaders under you navigating that?
Yeah, so our process, if we just start from a day zero, we'll come in and we'll have our goal. And our goal is whatever it's been agreed to. It's to grow a certain amount, achieve certain numbers, whatever it is. We'll put a strategy around that goal. And that strategy is not developed by me. It's developed by the team, the leaders in the business. The third step of that is we have to now organize ourselves around those strategies, right? And it's everything from, if they don't have a lean resources or group, we're going to put that in. If they don't have 80-20, we're going to put that in. If we don't have HR, whatever it is that we need to be successful, we can't fix it all, and we're not even looking for perfection. It's in that third step is when people start showing themselves, right? And honestly, we just have a very open conversation. We start early on. We communicate relentlessly, and we say, this is where we're going. And when someone isn't doing it, we don't embarrass them. We don't beat up on them. It's just not for them. We just go, this isn't for you. We'll take them aside and go, this is not optional, right? Now, we're not talking about you have to have perfection in it or whatever. Right. Not everything we do, like I said, I don't care if they call it an NDI or MDI or glass wall or something. Call it Fred. Let's pay attention to what it is and make sure that we're going with it, because people need to feel like they control their own destiny. But I'll tell you, these tools are proven. They work everywhere. Everyone, this is a little bit of exaggeration. You'll go into certain, they'll go, look, you don't understand. We're different. And I think in my head,
right.
I go, yeah, you are. Your on time is horrible. You're not making any money. We got 4 times. Yeah, you are different. You're way different than what you're going to be, right? Wow. And so we look for people to embrace it, and we'll put up with the mistakes, but we will not put up with not trying.
Right. Yeah. The effort, the real effort versus someone being dismissive and saying, no, I'm not going to do it that way, or giving it lip service.
And lean has really good processes that make folks expose what they're doing. Like, look, we're on a learning journey to get to the journey together. We're going to get things wrong. Who cares, right?
Yeah.
In fact, I love the mistakes because then people can see that we're human beings and we're just going to keep getting them better. So start where you are, right?
Yeah.
But it's those who do that I think of as malicious compliance or pocket codes, right? They'll go, well, I did it that way. And I'll go, well, that was necessary, but maybe not sufficient, right? So I sent the email. I go, did you pick up the phone? Did you go, so you really look for people who want to be part of that team, that have that enthusiasm, who recognize that we're on a journey. And some roles just aren't for people, right? Some people are just in a point in their career. And, invariably, if they're fighting you that hard, they're going to be so much happier doing something else. This is not what they want to do. Why be miserable? Go be go someplace that whatever it is you can do and you want to do, that's where they're looking for that. But probably not here.
Yeah. And there are still a lot of companies doing things, quote unquote, the old way, where that would be valued. Somebody bringing in their comfort and experience with the old way, whether that means, firefighting, punishing mistakes, building up inventories, things that, we wouldn't want to be doing in a growing, successful, lean organization. I almost left the word lean out of that sentence, right? Because I wanted to talk more with you, about growth and business goals. And I love how you emphasize growth. It seems such a better foundation for lean than being, a cost cutter, neutron jack, hack and slash kind of mode. For example, lean consultants say, and I'm sure, next level partners and others that you learn from would always say, well, okay, if we're going to do a lot to take waste out, we're going to improve efficiency and productivity. We don't want people to lose their jobs as a result of lean, because they're not going to participate in all of this. So we'll grow. We'll grow and redeploy people and not have to hire as many people. So, I mean, how would you explain the role of growth as connected to lean?
Look, everybody knows that lean means less employees are needed, right? That's what they're thinking. As soon as you show up, oh my God, we're getting fired. And
after hearing we're different, then you'll hear something else.
Oh, we're for sure getting fired. And sometimes that's true, right? Sometimes it is less employees that are needed. Generally, so our process, I think all our processes, we're more than just a one-trick pony, right? We're not just going to come in and polish and shine and have a Kaizen and high-five our way out the door. It takes a lot of stuff. It's people. Where we are today and how we start is probably not where we're going to be tomorrow, and what we need. And there's a lot of things we have to decide. Are we selling the right products? Are we looking at these things? And what lean is going to help you do is whatever you're doing, it's going to help you do it better, right?
Yeah.
And you want to take these resources, because here's the thing that I think people can struggle with. It is so easy, and we naturally like, because it's fun, to say, all right, I've identified the market I want to go. I've identified. I know the customers. Here's the products and everything. Now, just give me, and they'll give you a capital request, and I need this many people. I'm like, where do you think this money's coming from, right? I'm already losing money, so I don't have this. And so I said, we have to generate this. And the way we generate it is we identify what is not working. So we don't need all this inventory. That is stacks of cash setting up there. Most of it covered in dust. Some of it's rusty. Some of it's out of date, but still stacks of cash. We got to get this stuff out of the business. We got to monetize it and make it available. These tools allow us to identify what's not needed. And then the strategy, the vision of where we're going, that's where we do need it. So how do we translate? How do we transform our water to wine, our excess inventory to cash, to go to the inventory that we do need? Because look, I've never had a case that I didn't have enough inventory. I always have too much. It's just the wrong inventory in the wrong location, right?
Right.
So I have to go through that. Lean's going to allow us to do it. Now, What does that mean? That may mean I don't want that product anymore. And how do I know I don't want it? It's not that I don't want it. The customers aren't buying it, right?
Mm-hmm.
It may mean that the skill set of the employee who's over here running a widget machine, well, now we need to run him a twisting machine. It doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
We're going
Right.
to do everything we can to get people ready and willing and capable of making that transition. Some people will make the transition. Some people won't. Sometimes,
Right.
unfortunately, we have a factory in the wrong location. We don't decide the factory's in the wrong location. The market tells us.
Yeah.
We can look at the numbers and we say, all right, is there anything we can do about it here? And if the answer is no, then we have an obligation to the entire company to get it right. Because if we aren't making those choices, then that means we're probably not going to make it ourselves, right? So we make these tough decisions. I make no excuse for them. I don't apologize for them. I'm say, look, here's the data. If we think
Mm-hmm.
we can fix it, then let's go fix it. But it's a little bit like selling buggy whips. Buggy may be the best buggy whip world out there, but we don't really drive buggies much anymore. And today, sometimes you're looking at some of the ICE engine, internal combustion engines, right? They're trying to transition away to that to EVs. Now, look, I think we're going to get there.
Yeah.
We got a little ahead of ourselves, and we're
Mm-hmm.
kind of going back to the ICE engines right this second. So the future will tell us, the market will tell us. Our job is to respond to it and get it right, because if we get it right, we project jobs, people get raises, we grow this, but all good things happen. But if we get stuck and we can't make those leaps, we can't make those tough decisions, you're in trouble because someone else is going to.
Yeah. I want to shift a little bit and go back to, I'm glad that you brought up the SQDC letters. It's not even an acronym. It doesn't spell anything, but it's important.
I've said it a million times in my life, right? I try to, but that's the whole thing is that board. And then we'll add like another couple of things on there once in a while, but those are it.
Yeah, and, SQDC rolls off the tongue. I stumbled earlier when I was introducing you about PGOS. After saying that a few times, profitable growth operating system, rolls off the tongue too. But I first heard SQDC 30 years ago, even at General Motors, when they were not close to Toyota standard, but we had new leaders emphasizing that. My wife's CEO today in 2025. Preaches, it's not quite the right word, but emphasizes SQDC. There's legs to this concept and these priorities. How do you, starting off with S, kind of think through as a leader, helping a company emphasize safety first and what that translates to?
Safety is one of the most interesting, and I've spent most of my career in manufacturing. A lot of the companies I have today happen to be in distribution, so we're dealing with more strains and sprains. But a lot of the machines we've had, they yank your arm off, right? Like it's really really tough. And so your approach, just by nature, a lot of times is different in different places and the urgency. But so we try to really think about safety. And there's companies out there like Kennametal and other ones who've taken safety and they run everything off of safety, right? They make everything through it. So you can go all the way to that. I don't think that's an extreme, but really at the end of the day, safety is about people going home in the same shape that they've got there in. I used to try to say better, but I was like, I'm not sure I was going to make them better. But no, it's about going home in that. And so then everything in that environment has to change, right? Everything from trip and fall hazards to how we have bumps in the parking lot and potholes, right? To what their station looks like and where things are. So it's all about being fit, form, and function. But you want people to be in an environment they're safe, not only physically, but mentally. So we try to make sure people treat them with dignity and respect. You can take that first one and you can run an entire organization around creating an environment where the work can get done and people can really prosper in it and go home and feel good about what they did, right? So I think when you start with that and you let them recognize this is the one on the board that's about them, and them and us helping them and them helping us and helping each other, that's really the one that makes that company culture what it's all about. Start with that. They get it because guess what? They want to go home safe too.
Right. Yeah. And I think when that commitment is made. Paul O'Neill, the late Paul O'Neill, famously led with safety at Alcoa when he was
That's right.
CEO there. And what you were saying, Bill, reminds me of Paul O'Neill said those same phrases of we want people to go home in the same condition or even better condition than
Right.
when they came in. That's um, kind of thinking through some of the language around. Okay, does that sound like too much? But it's important, as you said, like not having people go home stressed out and pissed off and bringing that home to their families. I mean, that really impacts health and family life in a lot of really important ways. And, Bob Chapman, the CEO at the Barry Waymiller companies, really talks about like, how workplace culture and a better work environment is leading to not just a reduction in injuries, but a reduction in illnesses or,
That's right.
heart problems or stress induced health problems or mental health issues. So, yeah, I mean, there are some CEOs. I mean, that seems like that's a heavy burden, when you think about thousands of people. But
Yeah, if you think about it, it turns out to be easier than what you would think. Because first of all, we're all aligned. Everybody wants each other to be safe, be thoughtful about it. But what's some of the things you can do to not only keep them safe right there, but improve it? So we used to do things, and different companies have different ways of doing it. But like where we offer physicals, people can come in and get their physicals. In fact, we'll include it in their health insurance that if you don't get a physical, there's a punitive piece. We have to force them. It's kind of interesting to get them to go do it. We've had clinics where we come in. We've put computers out on the floor so people don't have to go home and try to figure out how they fill out their health insurance. They can have right there and get people to help them and make sure they're getting the coverage you want. So there's all these things, from giving back, from blood donation days to offering free flu shots or COVID shots or whatever it is they're looking for. So yeah, we can do a lot with it. Every
yeah,
bit of the stuff that we've done on that has only improved. There's the old saying, a stitch in time saves time. So if you can help people with smoking stopping programs, I can't speak English, to giving their flu shots if they want, to making sure the guards are in on their machines, to making sure that the mats are taped down and the yellow lines are where they are, and the pallet's not sticking out over it. So when someone's walking through there, they're not tripping and falling. So there's so many things that we can do to not only help them when they do something go terrible, but keep it from happening before we get there. So safety is a big one. Every day that when we kick off with our stand-up meetings, we have a 15-minute stand-up meeting. They're all at the same time. The first thing that we do is we have a safety moment, right? And we'll talk about something. Sometimes they'll bring a ladder and say, look, this is what we expect the ladder to look like. This is how you set it up. And it seems simple and all that, and it really is. But just the fact that we're talking about it gets people thinking about these things, right?
yeah,
And if there's an incident anywhere in the factory, we're going to talk about it in that, because that safety person who comes around will sit there and say, hey, look, last night we had this injury. Let's make sure that we're aware of this, and let's make sure that we're not doing this ourselves, right? And those things make a lot of differences for people.
yeah. And that focus on safety and improving safety certainly coexists with business performance. And I think in the category or in the spirit of the SQDC flow, that focusing on safety, quality, delivery, doing those things well leads to lower cost. It leads to business results, and I think that's where I wish more companies embraced lean as opposed to cost cutting, because we all know there are ways to cut costs that would harm quality or delivery. I'd love to hear, if you have a favorite example of how improving quality and delivery helps facilitate growth and improves the bottom line in a way that's not that quote unquote cost cutting.
I'll tell you, so first of all, let's just acknowledge you're going to cut costs wherever you can, right? You're going to have to. But if you cut costs at the sense of your quality, your value, or whatever, be prepared to get one sale. You probably won't get the next one, right? Whether it's our own life, right? You buy a shirt, that shirt looks really cool. a buddy of mine, and I shouldn't name anyone, but of course I will. A buddy of mine loves Hawaiian shirts, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
wears them all the time. They're really cool. So Temu, I don't know if you've heard of Temu or not, but Temu, I'm probably saying it
Mm-hmm.
wrong. I think they come out of Asia, and
It's China. They ship direct from China. Yeah.
he can buy Hawaiian shirts for $4 a piece, right? And he has had a great time doing it. Some of them have been quite interesting. A lot of them don't make it past one or two wearing, right? So it's
Yeah.
so you can cut costs, and there will be some short term benefit. But if you lose your core values, if you're a high quality, high where people are really depending on it, that price that you have has to be reasonable for that, and that may be 40% more than the lowest cost one. That's perfectly good, right?
Mm-hmm.
I have made my entire career on selling premium products. I have never been a
Mm-hmm.
low cost provider of anything, right? We have tried to make low cost stuff, and all we do is then over build whatever low cost thing we start out with. So going cheap doesn't work. Hasn't worked for me. Having cost competitive, high value products, I think you can do really well with it. So what happens is this, right? You'll be looking at something, and you have a part, and you need to cost reduce it. The market's changed. You need, if you're going to stay in this, you need to cost reduce it. Now, if you have a good sourcing group, not just purchasing, not just taking whatever comes, but a good sourcing group, all of a sudden you're looking at it on a global basis. That may mean you get it out of Asia. It could be China. It could be out of your back door. It doesn't really matter, because it's whatever is important and how your customers value. So let's just take an example. I can buy a product here locally. I'm going to make up a number for $10. I can get that same product out of Asia. Maybe it's for $1. Well, I got to put transportation on it. I'm probably
Mm-hmm.
going to have 16 weeks it takes for me to get it. So that means I got to have much more inventory.
Mm-hmm.
If anything goes wrong, I got 16 weeks of stuff I got to get back to it.
Yeah.
If now I might have to take and check it in when it comes to my dock. I can't just go dock to stock, so I have to have more people looking at it. My point being is, when you start making all these moves, you've got to go through and ensure you have that quality. Getting it local doesn't mean it's high quality, and getting it out of Asia doesn't mean it's low quality, but you have to look at these things and make sure you understand your straightforward value proposition. Because if you lose that, you've lost the game. You've absolutely lost the game with it. Your customers know it, and they'll leave you.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you get in, you don't want to get into a death spiral instead of a growth situation.
So I have this quiz that I have on my website with this new book coming out, From Panic to Profit. And one of the things that we have, and we change these up all the time, is like what's the 6 signs you should be profiting, or you should be panicking, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it asks all the obvious stuff. How's cash flow? Cash is king. If you're out of cash, you're probably out, right? How's your employee morale, right? If your employees are turning over and they're leaving you. How about your investors? Are they giving you more money? It goes all the way through. The last thing you get to is like, what's your core value? Why do people buy from you? So if you are a premium product and all of a sudden you knock that down, you take it away from it, you've gone lower cost. In the short run, you may have made a little extra money, but you've lost your value proposition. You may never recover that.
Yeah.
Right? Because once you break their trust, but they don't know why you exist anymore, they just move on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So I want to transition, and in my mind, I was pausing there, but I was thinking about that was part of the General Motors problem. So I ended up saying,
do you remember that you remember when that guy came over and he cut all the pricing and everything? I think he came out of Volkswagen.
Ignacio Lopez.
Yes.
Right? Yeah.
Do you know it put so many suppliers out of business? It changed the entire industry for a short period of time. People, General Motors, Ford, at the time it was Chrysler, now it's Stellantis, made more money. It just about killed the industry, right? Yeah. And you know why? Because as a consumer, I was happy to see what was happening because I was getting more business. I didn't even want to buy an American-made car anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, the thing's junk. It took forever to get that back. Now today they have some of the finest products out there, but all of a sudden a German car meant something different. All of a sudden a Japanese car meant something different, and an American car meant it was expensive and it broke.
Yeah. Well, and I'm thinking of 1995. Just the short version of the story was, I got to go as an employee to the Boston Auto Show. And you can imagine, Boston, I love Boston, but Boston accents and attitudes. And, it was
The
1996.
whole
And
thing.
I'm standing there in a General Motors display, and people that would go out of their way to come up and tell you about that piece of junk 1978 Cutlass. And like, why don't you just, I got tired of it because I'm like, it's that, but people have a long memory and it's hard to get a second chance.
That's right. I remember Ford, we picked found on road dead, right? I love it. We're the best pickups in the world, right? But like, people remember this stuff forever. So be careful about giving up your quality. It's the one thing it's the trust factor, right? It is the trust factor at all. If I can't depend on you in my most important moment, why would I depend on you at all? I'd rather either know what I'm getting so I'm prepared for it than think you're going to be the best in breed and you let me down, right?
Yeah. So I wanted to talk about your first book that came out in 2024. Again, our guest is Bill Canady. The first book was The 80/20 CEO, Take Command of Your Business in 100 Days. First question is, clearly you're very busy. So what was the inspiration behind writing a book and making that happen?
There's a couple things. So the first was I always wanted to do one, right? I really did. And over time, I developed this really, I thought, great tool set. And I came in and I was starting to run a lot of companies. And one of the things that guys like you and I do, we love standard work, right? We want our process to be repeatable. And so I find myself saying the same things again and again and doing the same thing again. So I took all that standard work and I put it together in the 80/20 CEO. And it's really just three things in the book. The first one is a little bit about me. It's that social credibility. Hey, here's what I did. The second one was those 4 simple steps of how to get command and control. Simple, not easy, right? And then the last piece where here's the tools. And, one of the foundational tools is lean, right? You can do all sorts of things, but if you can't get that waste out, you can't get flow, you're going to be in trouble with it. So that was the setup for it. I had the stuff. I had 30 years of career of doing these things. And I think it must have resonated. We've been a bestseller for a long time.
Yeah.
And so it's turned out to be kind of a fun project for me.
Yeah. Well, and then you got the bug. You've got a second book on the way and more to come, I think. But the subtitle. Well, for one, people in this audience, whether they're a formal belt of any color, they'll recognize 80/20. Oh, Pareto principle, and I want to dig into that. But first off, from the subtitle, Take Command of Your Business in 100 Days. Why are the first 100 days so critical for a new leader?
If you look back in history, and I think it goes all the way back to Roosevelt, where people talk, what did you accomplish in your first 100 days? And so there's this not only theory, but I found it true in my own life is when you come in, you have a very short window to make an impact, right? At some point, generally about 6 months, the honeymoon's over, and now you are the problem as well, right? So you get 100 days, give or take, and they're expecting to see something. So the company is ready. You're here for a reason. If everything was going super great, they don't call guys like you and me, Mark. There's lots of success has 1,000 fathers, failures and orphans. So when guys show up, they're not like, hey, look, we don't have any waste and numbers look great. Come on in, right? No, there's a problem. We're here and we got to move fast. By having a process, a proven set of tools like lean and 80/20, things like that, you can hit the ground running and you can bring people with you.
Yeah. And in those first 100 days, then, of all the things that a CEO could be learning or looking into or working on, the Pareto principle, it seems from your experience, turns out to be a helpful filter.
It is. So I think there's 2 pieces that go together. So it might be a little bit of heresy, but So I think lean is probably the most powerful tool, one of the most powerful tools you can use. The problem that lean gets, besides people say less employees are needed, right? It's just a cutting tool, is you can fix things that you don't really need. You can throw $1 million at a nickel problem. You can take a factory where you're not making any money and lay it out. You maybe shouldn't be in that factory. So 80-20 starts with the data. And it says, where am I making money? Where am I not making money? So instead of focusing on things that may be easy but not impactful, you need to focus where you can actually save yourself. So you can take a quick look at the data. You don't have to know it all. You'll find when you show up, people, they have lots of opinions, but generally those critical ones, they know what's happening. You can pull the data really quickly and say, oh my gosh, if I don't fix this, we're in trouble. It's the same way as a doctor. A doctor shows up and they've got the ABC, right? What is it? Airway, breathing, circulation, right? Or something like that, right? So there's a same thing in business. You need to fix what's really broken, that if you don't, you can go out of business. So we look at the things that we're bleeding a lot of money, and we also look at where there's opportunity for growth. We want to start working on those because we necessarily make a mess on things. You need lean to keep the business going, keep it as humming as efficiently as possible. So 80-20 tells you what to aim at. It does not tell you how to fix it. It says this is where the money's at. Lean will show you how to get that thing flowing again.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's fair. And I don't think that's criticism of lean. The point you brought up, Bill, kind of saying it back in a different way is that, these lean methods are not a substitute for human judgment or business judgment based on data. And in what direction do you point these people and these methodologies, right?
The data will tell you. The data will tell you this is where the money's at. This is where the opportunity is. You get your people around it. Then you have to tell them what to go do. And if you're running a factory, there is nothing any more powerful than starting a daily stand-up meeting to focus on what's not working. You go to Gemba, you walk around, you come back, you get in front of that board. You say, this is what was not happening. This is what we did about it in this shift. We got something done right now. It is the most powerful thing you could do. But being a CEO, being a director of operation, being a manager of lean, you want to be in the factory that actually you can make some money at, right? No need of going out in the one that's just interesting, right? And we find that with customers. I was a sales guy, so I'll pick on myself. There were some people I like to go see. I don't know, maybe I like golf, or they had a good lunch place, or they were just nice to me. But the real one I needed to go to see was the company that had volume that I could get, and I was losing. I needed that volume, right? That meant I had to get on a plane, or maybe it was right in my backyard. The data would tell me where I could go win at. That's what we've got to aim them at something.
Yeah. Well, and as an engineer, I'll pick on myself or engineers more broadly. Of like, sometimes you want to work on the interesting problem that might really be a bit trivial from the business perspective, as opposed to the critical few, like the business critical.
That's right.
Problems, right? So we could all use some guidance and push in the right direction from leaders.
Yep, that's our challenge. That's always our challenge. Is we like to do things that are interesting and not always important. You need both, right? You need to make sure that's going to go. Some of those things are a little bitter, right? The medicine we don't like. But if we can identify that's how we're going to save ourselves. If we quit breathing and we bleed out, we die. Just like in that. Same thing in a business. If we don't get our cash under control and we don't keep the orders coming in and going out the door, we get ourselves in trouble really, really quickly. So it's exciting. I love the fact we have these tools, just like with our people. We need a good talent program. We need to make sure we're getting these people trained, and we need to make sure that the people that we have want to be there, and that's what good talent's about. We got to do deals, M&A. So it takes a simple set of tools. If you are the best lean practitioner absolute in the world, your business is going to be better, but it's not going to be absolutely as good as it can be. If you're the best 80-20 by yourself, the business is going to be better, but it's not going to flow as smoothly. If you don't have good talent programs, and it goes on and on. Each one of these are necessary. It's like a carpenter. We got a box of tools. We need to pull them out at the right time, and some things are a little bit more interesting than the other. You can take a hammer and put a screw in, but it's generally better on a nail.
Right. So Bill, I appreciate you saying, that lean is a really powerful methodology. But it's still like, what can we do to help? I think your books will help, but what else can we do to help? Either, is it a matter of educating other CEOs that either haven't really heard about this or don't believe in it because they don't have experience with it, or I mean, it seems outside of certain subsectors, lean is still not the default business system. I
That's
don't. I
right.
mean, I'm curious for one, your assessment of that, and then two, what can we do about it?
I think there's a couple of things that seem to work really well. So the first being is, you know, if you have a problem, you're going to be out looking for something. So we need to be a reservoir of a place where people can come and know about it. So one of the things that we've done, we're launching what we call the 80/20 Institute,
Mm.
which is really about focusing on things that we think can make a difference. Lean is in there, pricing, procurement, all the tools. Some of them are processes and methodologies. Some of them are simply, do this better with it. So I think it starts with getting words out, like what you're doing here with podcasts. The second piece is making sure that people know and having a good process that they can come and find. So one is we believe in a method that we call the 70/20/10. So 10% is formal training, right? It's read the books, it's watch the podcast. The 20% is hiring people like yourself, hiring people who are absolutely experts that'll come in and mentor them through it, help them train it. But the most important thing they can do is the 70%, and that's is get out there, take these tools and start applying. OJT.
Yeah.
Take your company, take it from, hey, I think this is interesting. Go do a Kaizen. Go relay out a line. Understand what a rabbit chase is. All right. Set a board up, even if it doesn't have everything on it. Maybe there's nothing under delivery today. That's all right. Get
Yeah.
that D up there. Start talking about where it is. And the first thing they're going to ask you, well, is it to request date or promise date? And you're like, well, what's that? Right. I just thought I said it'd be there on a Tuesday. So
Yeah.
you start working in it, and once you draw that line in the proverbial sand, you can get better.
Yeah. Yeah. So, Bill, maybe final question before we wrap up. The new book coming out late April, From Panic to Profit: Uncover Value, Boost Revenue, and Grow Your Business with the 80/20 Principle. Would you say it's like read the 80/20 CEO first, and then this is a deeper dive follow up, or how do those books fit together?
They really stand alone, but when I wrote
Yeah.
the first one, the first book was aimed at the CEO and their staff and talking about, hey, you want to go on this journey. And it gave you a general idea of what lean is. It gave you a general idea of 80/20 and all that. This book takes you into a deep dive of getting through that couple of year journey around taking that 100 days and what does it really mean? Because even though we talk about it's 100 days, it's really whatever amount of time you want. It's your sense of urgency. You can do it in 100 days. You can do it in 1,000 days, but it talks about the processes and tools and things like that that you'll need. So it stands alone. You can read it, and it's the journey you're going to be on. It really goes deep into what is strategy planning, what is that segmentation, and the things that you need to go through it. And then we'll have another book that comes out, and we'll talk about talent. That's the next one coming out. It's called The Rule of Three. We'll have a strategy and lean and so on to give a little bit more deeper dive. The great thing about lean is there are so many experts out there like yourself. You've forgotten more today than I know about lean in and of itself. But looking at the processes and they're based off of these really fantastic tools is really taking people and taking them into a dive so they understood what I meant when I said the 100 days. Well, here's a deep dive in the 100 days.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Bill. I hope people will check out the books, the one that's available, the one that will be soon. There'll be links to all of that in the show notes, to Bill's website, to the 80/20 Institute. And again, if there are follow-up questions that you have as a listener, if there are questions you wish I had asked Bill, come join us April 23rd as part of the KaiNexus webinar series, and really look forward to continuing that discussion with you and our audience there that day, Bill. So thank you. Thanks so much, and really great to have you here on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Mark, for having me. This has been fantastic.